closer to the ball.
It was up on the stage.
Yeah, no, but obviously connected.
Okay, well, that was a lot more interesting than this. And you could read the numbers on the ball,
I know, that was kind of
which is what I was doing.
That's kind of cool.
Because I had my phone, and then I realized that there's like a 2-second difference between my phone and the ball. So I just put my phone away.
It's just, it was a little bit shit, though.
Well, yeah, they didn't drop it from nearly as high. Instead of being on the fire truck all the way up, it was on the fuel truck. When I asked Brad why so low, he said, well, because when he bought the cables to run the LEDs, he bought the 25-foot version of the cables instead of the 50-foot version.
We got it a little higher.
Yes, it should have been higher.
I heard a lot of comments on that.
It should have been higher, but that was all belonged to the cable truck.
That makes sense.
I think it was more on the other side. So he said next year it'll be a bigger ball and be higher.
That was pretty awesome.
No, it was a nice ball. I liked all the stuff he had on there. You could run a movie on there if you wanted to. Yeah, Pam is here.
Yeah, we can't tell the rest. We can't tell the rest tomorrow.
Hey, Michael.
I still get anyone asked for I still can't find it. That means I'm not doing it. Well, I can't say it's dirt. Can't say it's dirt. It's dirt's all here. I don't think he put himself on. No, I think he did put himself on. If he does show up tomorrow, I expect you all to back up.
So Derek got sick today, so he's not going to be here for this.
He's not. Okay.
And
So are we not going to skip this?
we'll skip the presentation. Derek wants to do it, but he wants to be here and not be sick.
I shouldn't start over with.
Yeah, there's nothing time sensitive. And then this contract. Yeah, we're going to. There was a couple of problems with the way the contract was worded. Rather than try to fix it on the fly, we're just going to put it off another.
And then I just noticed this is just a typo thing that we had. Sometimes wondering in the public hearing, ABC, AAB.
Yeah, that's.
Problem was referred to. I just want to note that if we're
Okay.
taking off.
Since you say that, I noticed that there's no item C here.
No, there isn't. So I assumed we were not going to consider a resolution because there wasn't one.
Hold on. Ashley?
What?
I didn't notice this before, but I noticed after the second public hearing, there was no resolution to adopt.
Yep, in our
On their part or on our part? Okay, so after public hearing,
We won't deliberate.
okay, so that's in the bylaws. Okay. No, that's fine. I don't have a problem with it. Just
Okay.
when this
So,
happened before,
but-
it wasn't intentional.
But, oh yeah, and that's because my question is, because it's, and Mr. Mayor, you can answer this, because of that, I assumed, I tried to prepare as much as possible, but I figured we were not going to be discussing that since we didn't consider it.
No, but I might ask if there's any questions anyone has.
I did have,
Because-
I did have a few, yeah, I did
I mean,
have a
but
few.
you know, if you have a question that you want answered by the next meeting,
It wouldn't be bad to call
ask
them
it.
out, okay,
ask it now.
okay.
I guess I didn't realize the EDC bylaws. Okay. I think that's not a bad thing.
No, I think so too. And actually, I want to spend more time on my questions on that one.
Okay.
I was
Well,
like, we're
if
not
you
considering it,
if
so
you
I'm
wanted to
probably not.
articulate any questions tonight,
No, I think I'd
fine,
like-
can do so.
I'll just take more time to
communicate them
review and get
separately.
back to you. Right.
Alrighty. Thank you for that. I miss things too sometimes. So how come they're numbered A, B, C, A, B?
Under,
separate items.
yeah, but
They're
there's
not-
two A's and there's
So there's
two
an 11A
B's.
and 11A, there's an
Should be.
11B and 11B,
Should be 11A, B, C, D, E.
or should be. Right, but they're numbered, they're numbered 11A, 11A, 11B, 11B.
Yeah. You could have done 11A
Could've
and
been.
have it about the Northwest One plan and
any
then
number
do
of ways.
ABC and,
Yeah, it's
but
not a big
just
deal.
as a reference, we'll be talking
But
about.
when we read the minutes next time, and they refer to these, then I'll be like, oh,
Well, I was gonna call it out, or I don't know if we wanna call it out when we're skipping, changing things, changing agenda.
if you want to renumber them, I guess we could, if you
I
just want
think
to say
just
good
do
enough.
it D and E, yeah, instead of, just do it sequentially.
Right, we just don't have any way of telling them apart.
No.
Yes. It's more of a bookkeeping type issue.
Well, I think we can call it out, we could add it to the agenda, agenda, just like we're skipping these other things.
All right, so we'll make a couple of adjustments when we adopt the agenda. No problem.
No, I think I corrected that. Cause I'm like, this reads weird. I was right. It's okay. So it was me. But there's always like some point as well.
I know.
It's like, did I even look at that? I mean, to be fair,
Thank you, Scott.
not actually, just see her.
Almost 2 minutes over.
It takes a while.
Sometimes those 3 minutes of calls of the audience can get long too.
Sometimes.
Yeah, it looks like he's lost. Welcome everyone to this regular city council meeting for Monday, January 6th, 2025, our first meeting of the year. Marie, would you please call the roll?
Fritz,
Here.
Lowe,
Here.
McLaughlin, Manetza.
Here. Our invocation this evening is by Pastor Emmett Brown of Trinity Church. Please rise and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this new year that you've brought us into. We thank you for bringing us at least relatively unscathed through the holiday season and all its craziness. And Father, now as we work towards this new agenda for the new year, we pray that you will help us to keep your interests and the interests of these people in Grand Haven first and foremost in all that we do. Help us to put aside petty squabbles and bickering, and help us to come together and be of one accord so that we can work together successfully and in unison to do the things that are best for the city and the people in it. Lord, we thank you for this time, that it'll be used for your purpose. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. That brings us to the approval of consent and regular agendas. Can I get a motion?
So moved?
Support?
Motion by Fritz, second by Lowe. Changes to the agenda.
Mayor, due to illness and some other factors, I'd ask that you consider removing item 9A and 10C this evening until your next agenda.
Okay. And then, Karen, did you want to renumber the items under 11?
Yes. I'd like to renumber the second 11A as 11D and the second 11B as 11E.
Any other changes?
Your Honor, did you want to remove this?
So we have a request by the city manager to remove
Item 10C?
10C and 9A.
Oh, both of them
So
together.
those are
Okay.
th-
9A. Okay.
Three changes to the agenda then.
Right.
Can I get a motion to, did you have anything else?
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
Second?
Okay, motion to amend the agenda by Fritz, second by Lowe. Please call the roll on the amendment.
Fritz,
Yes.
Lowe,
Yes.
Manetza.
Yes. Okay, can we vote on the amended agenda?
Fritz,
Yes.
Lowe,
Yes.
Manetza.
Yes. All right, that brings us to our first call to the audience. This time, members of the audience may address council on any item, whether on the agenda or not. Those addressing council are asked to provide their name and address, will be limited to 3 minutes of speaking time. Council will hear all comments for future consideration, will not have a response at this time. Those not physically present who would like to call in may dial 616-935-3203. And we will have 2 public hearings this evening. And so if you want to speak to the public hearings, that's a separate item, but you're welcome to speak now. Sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening. I'm speaking to you tonight on behalf of the Grand Haven Salvation Army. I'm a member of the advisory board here in Grand Haven, talking to you concerning agenda item 13C.
Tom, could you tell us your name and address?
I'm sorry. Tom Reinsma, 1428 Woodlawn Commons in the city.
Thank you.
Continuing, the issue under 13C is the removal of the sensitive overlay designation for the Salvation Army property that lies to the south of the Corps headquarters. The headquarters are on Despelder Street, and the land lies, as I said, to the south of that. My purpose is to give you some background concerning the request. The property in question was acquired by the Army in 2001 for the sum of $50,000. It's been left vacant and unused for 25 years. Last year, the Army determined that they did not see any foreseeable need to use that property for the core activities and its Grand Haven programs. Given this determination, a discussion occurred with respect to selling the property. After consideration of what the Army thought would be most beneficial to the Grand Haven community, they determined that land should be sold for affordable owner-occupied housing similar to Robinson Landing. Since the Army is not in the land development business, we searched for a nonprofit developer who could construct and finance affordable owner-occupied housing. We arrived at the conclusion that it should be Dwelling Place. Mr. Horner from Dwelling Place will tell you a little bit about who Dwelling Place is. The Army and Dwelling Place have a contract for sale of the property. It includes a covenant that there will be, that 2/3 of the housing units will be affordable. And again, Mr. Horner will tell you what affordable means. In order to do the development, the sensitive overlay designation on the property needs to be removed. And so the Salvation Army is asking that the council consider favorably adopting a zoning ordinance amendment which removes the sensitive overlay and allows the development to go forward.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jacob Horner. I'm a non-resident with Dwelling Place of Grand Rapids. I'm the head of real estate for Dwelling Place. We're the developer of the housing proposed on the site, currently owned by the Salvation Army near the corner of Fulton and Dispelder. Dwelling Place is the largest not-for-profit provider of affordable housing in West Michigan. We also coordinate supportive services for our residents, some of whom are the most needy in our communities. We've been in operation for 44 years and have over 900 apartment units under ownership and management. Dwelling Place also operates a community land trust, which provides for-sale housing which is attainable for households of moderate income. When I say moderate income, I mean between 80 and 120% of area median income. For a family of four, that would be an upper cap of about $110,000. This is the housing that we provide at this site. Our community land trust provides what is termed shared equity with the homeowner, where the CLT, Community Land Trust, retains ownership of the land and leases it to the home buyer in exchange for a discount of at least 25% from the market value. So when Tom said affordable, what we mean is that we help the home buyer get to a mortgage where their what's called a front-end ratio, or the ratio of income to the debt, is 31% or lower. So essentially, the homeowner, we want them paying 30% or less of their income, 31% or less of their income towards their home payment. Our continued ownership of the land and the lease provides a degree of control over the property, which prevents certain uses of the homes, including as a rental property. So these would not turn into Airbnbs. The CLT also allows us to discount the home price for all future buyers, since the home buyer will only receive a share of the appreciation and value of the home over time. In this way, the CLT creates a perpetual inventory of starter homes. Grand Haven needs them. 5 years ago, the median home sale price in Grand Haven was $200,000. In October of 2024, it was $378,000, which is a 23% increase year over year. Families of moderate income who have had the ability to buy a home for decades are now shut out of the market due to high home prices and interest rates. A large part of the market is not being served by the market, and it's our goal to help fill that gap. The site itself is locally designated as a wetland by the sensitive area overlay, which we are requesting be removed so the housing can be built. The wetland is not regulated by the state or federal government, as concluded by Triterra in the reports that we obtained and provided to the city. From what we understand, the wetland itself was created over time by the development of the surrounding properties. This development created a man-made depression which acts as a bowl, collecting stormwater runoff from the surrounding properties. Over the following decades, the stormwater created aqueous soils there, which is what creates the wetland. Therefore, the wetland was not naturally occurring, but was formed due to human activity. If we remove it, we are not removing a natural feature which was present before the area is inhabited. We do not take the removal of wetland lightly. However, we recognize the huge need for housing and would ask for your support. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm David Tenkate, also a non-resident, office address 18 North Fifth. Mr. Reinsma asked me to speak here today as a developer who our group has attempted to do a low-income or attainable housing developments, and to tell you without question how difficult that can be to do. And so in this instance, I don't know the terms of their arrangement or whatever, but in this instance, we've got a nonprofit working with another nonprofit trying to create some housing at a pricing level that's attainable. And to potentially sacrifice a sensitive overlay district application or whatever, I think is a sacrifice well worth making to help somebody do some development of this type that's really needed in the community. So I'd encourage you to support the change in the ordinance for them.
Thank you. Who else would like to address council?
I might as well. Hello, Josh Bruger, 626 Slayton Avenue in Grand Haven. I didn't actually realize when I was coming that the Salvation Army project was on the agenda. I planned on sitting and listening. But I served on the Salvation Army board for a number of years, over a decade. And that piece of property is something that we have had hoped to be able to develop at some point in time. And a number of ideas came up over the years, but housing affordability was the most pressing issue. And I am thrilled to see that that is on the agenda tonight, and I hope you guys will approve that. I'll put my commissioner hat on. Recently appointed, elected, thank you very much, Ottawa County Commissioner for Grand Haven, Spring Lake, and Ferrysburg. And at our organizational meeting, I had the privilege of being elected as the vice chair. So I am thrilled to be serving my hometown community of Grand Haven. I'm available. If you need anything as city representatives, please let me know. I'm here to serve and here to help. We have a meeting tomorrow. A meeting tomorrow morning that starts at 9 a.m. Not a ton on the agenda. We're trying to keep them a little bit lighter and to make sure that we notice everything so the public has clear and transparent understanding of what we're trying to do. The one item that is on the agenda tomorrow of importance, I think, would be hiring Gary Rosema as our interim county administrator. Gary is a former sheriff of Ottawa County, has lived in the county for his entire life, has a long history of serving the community, and we hope that we'll be able to bring him on a short-term basis with no severance package and a number of other things in the mix there. So anyway, I'll be in the audience observing, and I look forward to working with the city of Grand Haven in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh, and congratulations. Who else would like to address council? So there will be a second opportunity to address council at the end of the meeting, and there are 2 public hearings to address specific items. So on that note, I'll close the call to the audience. We removed from the agenda the public license recipients presentation by Derek Gatos. We'll have that at a future time. And that brings us to our consent agenda. Marie, would you read that?
Item A, approve council regular meeting minutes of December 16, 2024. Item B, approve the bills memo in the amount of $835,328.19. Item C, approve a resolution to award the custodial services contract to Zervis Facility Maintenance in the budgeted annual amount of $64,125. Nope, sorry, that got crossed off.
I was just going to say.
Item D, approve the resolution to change order 004 to task order 003, task order 006 for groundwater monitoring and reporting for the remainder of the fiscal year 2024-25 with HDR Michigan in the not-to-exceed amount of $160,351. And item E, approve the proposal from Fishbeck Engineers of Grand Rapids, Michigan to conduct a feasibility study on the expansion of the finished water storage and standby power capacity at the Now's Water Treatment Plant in the budgeted amount of $49,800 and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute the necessary documents.
Can I get a motion?
So moved?
Second?
Motion by Fritz, second by Lowe. Any questions on any item on the consent agenda? Hearing none, would you please call the roll?
Fritz?
Yes.
Lowe?
Yes.
Manetza?
Yes. All right, that brings us to our first public hearing for the evening. I'm opening a public hearing concerning the approval of a resolution to adopt the Northwest Ottawa County Joint Recreation Plan. Excuse me. Let's see, is there someone that would like to briefly discuss the plan before we have our public hearing? Dana.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. This evening, as the mayor pointed out, we have a public hearing concerning the Northwest Ottawa County Recreation Plan. In the spring of 2024, council authorized hiring Pam Blau, or PM Blau, to conduct an update to our 5-year recreation plan. And this plan is in coordination with the other units of government within Northwest Ottawa County. So that would be the cities of Ferrysburg and the village of Spring Lake, Grand Haven Township, and Spring Lake Township. So our 5 units of government have worked together to partner on this particular plan, which is seen as a unique plan in the state of Michigan and looked upon favorably for its collaboration. But the process involved with that plan was quite lengthy, involved a lot of public engagement through a public survey conducted by the Frost Center at Hope College, and involved a number of meetings with various parks and recreation boards, including the City of Grand Haven's Park and Recreation Board, city staff, and receiving public comment through email or posting that plan on our city website. And receiving comment. We did have a number of public comments, which was great to see. I was very happy about that. So those will be incorporated into future planning and discussions as we get into details when it comes to executing some of the projects and initiatives that are on the plan. But Pam is here this evening, so she's also available and happy to answer questions or provide additional context as needed for council.
Okay, thank you. Pam, would you like to add anything?
No, I'm really just here to offer. Hello,
You don't get off that easy.
I don't get off that easy, that's fine. I really came tonight just if there were specific questions on the process or what's in it, or more than happy to just offer some information.
Okay, thank you. Anyone from the audience who would like to address council?
Oliver Champagne, 540 D Avenue. I just want to speak on that plan quickly because I think it's wonderful. Dana already pointed out a lot, but we don't always get a lot of collaboration between our local networks. And I appreciate that one of our most important, valuable things I think about this area is our parks and those recreations. So it's cool to see that we're able to move past differences and actually establish that. And I would recommend approval for it. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? If no one else would like to speak to this, I will close the public hearing. And now it's up to council to consider a resolution to adopt the plan. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
And I'll second it.
Motion by Lowe, second by Fritz. Comments and questions by council?
Yeah, I had a number of questions, and I thought the overall plan was excellent, and kudos to everyone for such a nice collaborative effort for Northwest Ottawa County. And it went into a lot of detail. I just had a couple things, obviously specific to the City of Grand Haven, under the City of Grand Haven goals and objectives. We had a lot, I realize on recreation, I would have liked to see, like under goal number 3, under any of them, some kind of acknowledgement that we're also trying to balance our role as a custodian of urban forest and some of our sustainability and environmental efforts. Instead, it's almost solely focused on, recreational opportunities. And I realize that's part of the plan, but I think we should acknowledge that we also have this commitment and responsibility. I think you do get at it in a couple of the points, the objectives under goal number 3, but it's just never stated there. And I thought since it's such an important part, one of our pillars, that it should be included there, that there is a balancing act. And I think that would, also help reinforce some of the comments that I saw, Dana, that you sent out
late. I didn't get through all of them, but I think some of the comments were about our responsibility to not just provide recreation, but to protect our urban forest for use in future generations. And I just thought some of that language should be in there, just as an acknowledgement. And I did like to see, I saw under the priority projects, which I really liked, is that you did have some of the trail improvements and wayfaring signage and things like that. So I liked just seeing that on the agenda. The only other question I had was, in our list, in our inventory of the parks, or the parks that we were talking about, we had these 3 small, very small parks included. Let's see if I have them all here. Johnston Park, which was 0.11 acres. We called out Claver Park, and Klemple Park, I think, was 0.23 acres and 0.17 acres. And just knowing that along the lake shore in the Highland Park area, we have about at least 8 acres, at least 2 parcels that I know of that total 8 acres of land that belong to the city that are nestled in there. And you can just look on the GIS system and you can see that it's the city of Grand Haven that owns that. I just wondered why we didn't include those as part of the inventory. And it might be that it was, just has not been historically something that we've tracked. It's just, we've acknowledged it's.
Right. And that is true. We haven't historically had them in our Parks and Recreation Plan. We also have not historically invited the public necessarily to some of those areas or designated them formally as parks. Some of the other ones we vocalize them as parks. So it's certainly something that we can moving forward. And we had some discussion about whether we should include them or not, but had left them off, at least for the time being.
Right.
But they can certainly be added back in.
There's a part in it, I see Tony and Tom Noto out there, right across from the Notos. That park and that section there is all city-owned, I think, as you guys, both know. And it might be maintained by the neighbors in that, area largely. But it's still, a park that's open to the, public. And in fact, it has a historical marker, state historical marker for Highland Park in the middle of it, next to the historic small fountain. So anyway, I just wanted to call that out. It's nothing, it wouldn't stop me from approving this. It's just something to keep in mind. We have some other parcels or little parks, and if we're going to include some of these smaller ones, I also appreciate why we'd include some of these, because they're in the middle of some urban areas. It's nice to designate, and so I applaud those efforts. I just thought I'd go on record in case people have forgotten. We do own some other parcels that are parks and that are public parks. They're not privately, owned. Thank you.
All done? Okay, Mike?
I just want to say thank you to everybody that worked on this, because I was involved in it when we first started out with this many, many years ago, when we started doing a joint venture on this, so we get an inventory and see exactly what we have in our community, so we're all working together, so we don't duplicate surfaces, stuff like that, so we don't have to have 20 of these and 20 of those in each and every separate little area, so we could all work together on it. So the recreation plan itself, I think, is a good start for us. It's been working very well, and we have to do it about every 5 years, I think it is. We have to update it, so this is really good. And the listing of all the parks, we have to list them all, small, big, no matter what we have, we list them all. It's so everybody knows exactly what we have. And the same thing with all the other communities outlying around us. They list all of their parks and stuff and the recreation that we have. So I'm going to say thank you for everybody for working very hard on this and coming up with some kind of going forward for us. So this is really good for the whole community, not just Grand Haven, but outlying people around us. So if you get a chance, take a look at it. You'll see exactly what we have. You can see what our neighbors have. You can see what Spring Lake and everybody around. It's really a good plan. So I'm in favor of this, and I'll be moving forward with it.
Okay, thanks, Mike. And I think it's good to have a comprehensive plan for the region. It's a regional issue, and my experience with the people of this area is they neither know nor care which community they're actually in. Grand Haven area is a large area where we all kind of live together. So the fact that we can enjoy each other's facilities and not have unneeded duplication it's a great goal. The plan is Parks and Recreation plan, so the fact that the focus is more on recreation and less on conservation, it's kind of in the nature of how it was approached. Not that the conservation piece is unimportant, but the emphasis was on recreational opportunities. I think that's why you see more of that in here than you see in terms of ecological conservation. So that's probably why that emphasis is there. And I think also one of the goals of having this plan is so that when you're seeking grants, when you're seeking other ways to enhance and improve the parks on a regional basis, that this is a tool that's used to show what we have, where we're going, and why we deserve to have some help from outside. So it serves that practical purpose as well. So I would like to say one thing, and add to your list of tiny parks is Willow Park, which is a little triangle of land next to the railroad tracks. These are little pieces of land that were left over when the streets were laid out. And so they're parks probably because we mow the grass. But, they give us small urban green
Was that
spaces.
also included in here?
Yes, it was.
Oh, okay.
Willow
It
Park
was.
is-
How big was that?
Oh, that's the
Less than-
smallest one.
That's the smallest.
That would fit inside this room, I think.
Anyway, I just didn't know if there was a cutoff, and if there was, we missed quite a, few, so.
No, I mean, I think the mayor's correct. That part of the initial list is probably what do we maintain as a city? So that was probably the genesis of the list, at least starting off. And so unfortunately, that was off the list and just hadn't been added, but it's certainly something we could add in.
So whether or not other areas that are city-owned land deserve on the list or not, I guess it depends on just how finely you want to look at all the property of the city and whether it serves a purpose to have on the recreation plan or just to know that it exists. One thing I would like to talk about just briefly, not because it has anything to do with how we vote on this today, but there is, in my mind, there's a distinction between parks and parkland. We have parkland, which is owned by the city. There's 145 acres of it north of the river, which is referred to as North Shore Dunes, which is not a park, but it's parkland owned by the city. It's just unimproved land. There's other pieces of land which we treat as if they were parks. They're not formal parks, to my knowledge. And in the charter, it talks about parks as being parks as required by a master plan of the city. So I assume that they're alluded to in the master plan of the city rather than on this plan. But those are formal parks, and then there's parkland. And so I think it'd be nice to get a better idea as to the distinction, the importance of that distinction, and which lands are which. So at some point in time, I think I would like to see something back from Public Works or from someone as to exactly which parcels are parks and which parcels are not. And there is a distinction too in how council may dispose of such lands. Because if they're park lands, we can. If they're parks, it's a big process.
Is a park, just to try to be clear here, we included the North Shore near Musical Fountain in here, in this inventory. We also included Mulligan's Hollow. Is the distinction whether or not parkland, if it has trails that people use for
No,
recreation,
I think it's
then?
a formal adoption process.
Right, I'm really confused on
And that's
the
why I brought it
definition
up.
then,
Because I wasn't trying to muddy the water too much for tonight, but this is an important distinction. I think it should be clear to everyone in the council and in the community what we're talking about when we say parks and parkland. Being on this list doesn't necessarily make it a park, but it is parkland.
I'm not sure why we need the distinction. Do you think that this plan wouldn't apply?
The distinction is alluded to in the charter, so I think we need to know what it is. It also has to do with if you wanted to do something with that land other than keep it as it is. There's a different process then.
Would it prevent us from having it as a part of a recreation plan?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Because this is not a plan that dictates to us which are parks and which are not.
So
This is a
you mean
recreation plan.
in terms of whether or not we'd want to dispose of it or use it differently in the future?
Yeah, we should know which are which.
But it wouldn't it wouldn't prevent us from adopting this
it
or
would not.
inclusion in this. Okay.
That's why I started this with, I didn't
Thanks,
want to
sir.
muddy this too much, but it's important to me. I think it's important to a lot of people once they realize that there is a difference.
Yep, and that absolutely came up in our conversations throughout the process as something we would like to have as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Other than that, I think it's a very comprehensive plan, very well done. Lots of public input, and that's what we're looking for. So I'm in favor of approving it, knowing that we'll be looking at it again in the future and that we can make changes if we need to. So, any other comments?
No.
Please call the roll.
Lowe?
Yes.
Fritz?
Yes.
Manetza?
Yes. Thank you. All right, now I'm going to open a public hearing concerning the approval and adoption of the Brownfield redevelopment plan for 1500 Cooleyman project located at 1500 Cooleyman Street, Grand Haven, Michigan, for a period of, is it 17 years? Is that accurate?
Yes, with 5 additional returned.
With an additional capture of 5 years. So, I'm opening, well, first, let's see.
I can briefly
You
introduce it.
you want to summarize this, or should we have Emily do that?
I'm happy to do it.
Okay.
Yep, so the resolution covered a lot of ground, but this is a request from the development team for the redevelopment of a long vacant parcel off of Cooleyman. The proposal is to construct 12 commercial storage units within the site, within 2 buildings constructed. The property, as it is, faces a lot of different contamination issues with arsenic, copper, and lead. So the development team is seeking that 17-year TIF capture, totaling 23 years, with that additional 5 returning to the EDC BRA. I believe that amount totaled in the memo a little over $532,000, ending in 2048. And again, just as a reminder, through our recent economic incentive policy, we did separate this approval process so as to allow for council to have a little bit of a break between the public hearing and the official consideration. So tonight is only your public hearing on this matter. It'll come back before you for consideration at your January 21st meeting. Members of the development team, as well as Fishbeck, who completed the report, are here if you have any questions.
Okay, thank you. And just for clarity, this is the Brownfield plan, which captures both local, state, and educational money, correct?
Correct.
Yes. All right, so we have a public hearing. Would anyone like to address council on this item? If no one is going to approach council on this item, I'll close the public hearing. So we're not going to consider the resolution, but if there's comments or questions that are a good preface to our next meeting, we should perhaps ask those. And if not, we'll move on. Okay, so we'll take this up again as a resolution at a future meeting, probably our next meeting, I would assume.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that brings us to an item of unfinished business. Marie, would you read that?
Item A, consideration by City Council of a final resolution to approve a major amendment to the NODO's plan development for an illuminated sign on the south wall located at 1223 South Harbor Drive. Administration recommends approval.
Okay, can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second. Motion by Fritz, second by Lowe. This is our second reading of this item. We discussed it at length at our last meeting. Has anything changed on this?
No.
Okay. Brian, did you have anything to add?
Brian Urquhart, City Planner. No, nothing has changed as far as the plan from the request to have an illuminated sign on the south wall, same size, same specifications, and just kind of going through the process that was laid out and what was approved for recommendation at our December 17th council meeting.
Okay, thank you. Questions or comments?
Yeah, I'd like to make a statement here. I do want to apologize to the Planning Commission, as well as to the residents of Precinct 2 who wrote to the city or attended the Planning Commission meeting in opposition to this. I am very, very appreciative of NOTOs and very supportive of NOTOs, and believe that they have created a jewel in Grand Haven. However, I think what happened last month, I was very uncomfortable with what happened last month. Something kind of extraordinary happened, and you may have missed it. City Council basically overruled a planning commission decision regarding the request to add an illuminated sign on the south wall of their restaurant. In the 100-year-plus history of that site, there's never been a commercial sign on the south wall, let alone an illuminated sign. In addition to dismissing the work and the decision of the Planning Commission, we essentially drafted our own resolution approving illuminated signs. So we dismissed what they brought, sent forward and changed it. And despite numerous letters to the city from Precinct 2 residents living nearby, City Council refused to consider even the smallest of accommodations, and one that I don't think was asking too much, such as illuminating the sign or not illuminating the sign between midnight and 6 a.m. While it doesn't change what happened last month, I did want to apologize to the Planning Commission for not supporting and upholding their decision. Obviously, some of these kind of things are not black and white decisions. There's not a right or wrong. People have opinions, but I feel that we should have trusted the Planning Commission as they deliberated on this as our citizen volunteers representing us. So to my fellow council members, I do hope, I just felt like I needed to take a stand as we start 2025 so that we can perhaps try to listen to one another a little bit more and find solutions that we can feel good about supporting, particularly as our role is to not just choose, make a decision that benefits one, but that benefits the most people that we can. And I felt like we basically dismissed the concerns of nearby residents. So I'll be voting no on this final resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike?
I'm all set.
No, nothing has changed for me either, so would you please call the roll?
Fritz,
Yes.
Lowe,
No.
Manetza.
Yes.
This motion fails.
Okay. All right, so let's move on to new business.
Item A, consideration by City Council for an introductory resolution to amend the zoning map to include 700 Washington Ave, parcel number 70-03-21-358-019 in the Centertown Overlay District. Administration recommends approval.
Can I get a motion?
So moved?
In support.
Motion by Lowe, second by Fritz. Brian, would you like to explain this?
Happy to. So this request comes from John Grutheis of Washington Place LLC for a zoning change application to rezone 700 Washington Avenue, the entire parcel, into the Centertown Overlay District. Right now, it's currently zoned neighborhood mixed use. We're not changing the underlying zoning district, but we are basically adding it to the Centertown Overlay. It's currently a two-story brick condominium commercial structure. It's home to some well-known businesses such as Health Hut, the Tribune, and other businesses. One of the primary reasons of why you would rezone it to the Centertown Overlay is not because of what the uses are, but how it can be built in terms of height and lot coverage. And so included in the staff report are that items in the Centertown Overlay can have a setback of basically 0 feet, and then most importantly, a lot coverage of 100%. And then a building height is either the lesser of 3 stories or 40 feet, whereas currently 35 feet is the maximum height in the neighborhood mixed-use district. So the Planning Commission had a public hearing at the December 10th meeting. And the public comments that were received at that meeting were very favorable for the request. So some of the reasons why they agreed to move forward as a plan commission unanimously agreed to recommend approval is that this would create consistency with all parcels that are on the south side of Washington between 7th and 8th Street. And it would create every parcel that would be fronting that, kind of create a node of activity that would be similar types of uses and development opportunities for all those parcels. So it's unknown, it really is unknown why the Centertown overlay was drawn the way it was. However, you know, it is afforded to an applicant to request to include it into the Centertown overlay district. So Plan Commission largely felt that it met the intent and guided of the Centertown master plan and the overall master plan, and that was a logical extension of that. If it is moved forward, right now, there is no site plan or any formal application that has been submitted, but the intent would be, should it be approved, they would come back forward with a development proposal. So again, it looks like this would be a logical extension to allow a building and a parcel of that size, to allow for more of a compact, dense, kind of a mixed-use development that again aligns with our zoning ordinance and the vision outlined in the master plan and the subsequent or Centertown sub-area plan. So unanimously recommended for approval, and public comment always was in favor. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Any questions, comments?
No, you said Planning Commission recommended approval.
So when we instituted the Centertown Overlay District, it was largely done to make buildings which are non-conforming into conforming buildings in the Centertown corridor there. Why this was left off is probably because it either wasn't requested by them or because they weren't seen as having the same issues as across the street. So the Centertown Overlay District was very targeted. It was specific buildings that clearly were non-conforming under the neighborhood mixed-use rules and could be made into conforming buildings with the adoption of the overlay without creating a whole new district. So I believe that's the reason it was left out. That's my memory of it. Did it make sense to leave it out? It's probably more a matter of nobody asked. Sometimes you don't change the zoning on a property unless somebody wants you to. So that's my best recollection as to why we are where we are with this. Any other questions? Please call the roll.
Lowe,
Yes.
Fritz,
Yes.
Manetza.
Yes. Next item, please.
Item B, consideration by City Council of a resolution to award the Department of Public Safety garage design build contract to Lakewood Construction of Holland, Michigan in the amount of $36,000 and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute the necessary documents. Administration recommends approval.
Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Motion by Fritz, second by Lowell. Dana, are you explaining this one or someone else?
I am.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. This fall, council authorized staff to move forward with creating an RFP for a design build process to solicit bids from qualified construction firms that could work with us on putting together design, technical specifications, and construction specs for a new public safety garage. If you recall, with the sale of the city annex building and the garage that was attached, the city is working and making progress towards vacating that garage and rebuilding a public safety garage that houses some of their necessary equipment and is used also for training. So we did receive 8 bids for the design build contract, and Lakewood Construction was the lowest verified qualified bidder with a bid of $36,000. So we're recommending that we move forward with Lakewood Construction for the design build services, and we'll work with them on ensuring that what we bring forward for a final contract for construction meets the budget that we had identified in the capital plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions or comments? I had asked some questions before about the structure of this deal, because as a design build, I guess I had expected to see the design, the build tied together in the contract. We've separated that, now we're going to have a separate amount for the design, the specification, and the bid management.
Correct.
And we'll follow that up with, once we know more about the final cost, we'll follow that up with a second phase or second part of this contract.
Correct.
To get the building done.
Yes, that is
So-
correct.
It's similar to what we do anyway, except we're dealing with the same party for both of these.
Yeah, and slightly decreasing the overall process. We had a few more steps with bringing a proposal and going out to bid again after design. We're not going to go out to bid again after design. That's the intention anyway.
Okay. All right. If there are no other questions, would you please call the roll?
Fritz?
Yes.
Lowe?
Yes.
Manetza?
Yes. Next item, please.
Item C, consideration by City Council of an introductory resolution to amend the zoning map to remove the sensitive area overlay designation from parcel number 70-03-21-328-031. Planning Commission recommends approval, administration recommends approval.
Can I get a motion?
So moved?
Second?
Motion by Fritz, second by Lowe. Brian, are you up again?
All right, so this request, you heard some from the public comment earlier today, is to consider that the parcel in question that's owned by Salvation Army, which is undeveloped, within the neighborhood mixed-use district, that has currently some features that are locally regulated and under the sensitive area overlay. So a little bit of history behind this is in June, the development team from Salvation Army presented a preliminary plan for housing development on the parcel. One of the challenges that was noted is that the site is presently overgrown with brush, and they claim that it was not a wetland. They assert that because the way the ordinance is written, when they had the sensitive area overlay zoning district, would preclude the ability for having development, including housing development. So in this underlying zoning district, neighborhood mixed use, multiple family dwelling units or other types of housing is permitted by right. So they collaborated with the dwelling place to pursue a sensitive area overlay removal, which is offered to in the ordinance, as it always has been for the sensitive area overlay for reconsideration. So Planning Commission action, the dwelling place obtained an option on the property, and they consulted with Triterra, an environmental consultant, to perform a wetland delineation report. Pursuant to the ordinance in November, the Planning Commission determined that there was enough information in that wetland delineation report that they could schedule a public hearing to reconsider the local designation of a wetland in the sensitive area. The report described the property as an undesirable wetland area. It's comprised of overgrown and shrub trees. Dwelling place also noted, as it was stated earlier, that the property was built up over time around it, and that it has been kind of a sunken area where water has been able to filtrate, and then was never connected to, it was never a wetland in the first place, and it was never connected to a water body. So the statement that was made by the applicant was that removing the overlay would be appropriate because there was no natural wetland of any kind initially. So they requested the Planning Commission to make a recommendation to City Council to remove the sensitive area overlay zoning designation. I want to make it clear that we're not talking about state or federal requirements. This is a local designation. It's within the ordinance power. Why is it sensitive? Well, it's meant to serve as a area that we felt as though it would be for conservation, preservation, and preserving the identity of the city. And with this, the public hearing that was held, most of the comments during that public hearing were not in favor of it. However, I want to clarify that what we're looking at tonight is strictly recommending approval of removing the sensitive area overlay. The site plan, the layout plan, the affordable housing component is a completely separate issue. And largely, that's where the focus of the public comments were on about that. Right now, we're looking at the process of looking at a sensitive area overlay. Should it remain a locally regulated feature within our zoning map? By removing that, it opens the opportunity up for a blank slate, I guess, if you will, for the 2-acre parcel to have some type of development. And again, as that was just mentioned, anyone can request a removal of a sensitive area overlay at any time. However, it needs to be backed up by competent supporting findings of fact. And so the Planning Commission, in their determination, felt confident that the recommendation that was made in the wetland delineation report was substantial evidence and findings of fact that it was recommended to be able to remove. And again, the concept plan is just a kind of an idea of what the layout would be. And again, the requirement to remove a sensitive area overlay is not guided by what the end result will be. It's more along the lines of, okay, this was determined to be a sensitive area overlay when we adopted the ordinance and identified that because of that through the years and through the fact that it was historic record says it was a former celery field and it was built up over time that it became those wetland features when the sensitive area overlay was defined. And now it feels as though that when the opportunity comes before us for the Planning Commission to reconsider removing that and giving it just its underlying zoning district of neighborhood mixed use, they agreed that that was recommended to move forward. So within the wetland delineation report, they kind of spell that out. And so moving forward, should this get approved, the zoning map would be changed, and then whatever uses that are permitted, the applicant could come forward, or anyone with any type of use that would be within the right or by right or by special land use. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, comments?
So if I am understanding you and some of the comments that were made earlier, this property wouldn't meet the requirements to be qualified as a sensitive overlay area today, by today's standards. And that it was previously done, based on the fact that it used to be a former celery field, but the fact of the matter, the wetlands were more man-made wetlands due to the development of the surrounding area, the homes that were developed in it, and it became more of a man-made wetland.
Yeah, according to the environmental report.
The report, right,
yeah.
which was submitted to the Planning Commission. And the
Correct.
Planning Commission agreed with that.
Mhm.
And as you said, this is separate, this issue is separate from what happens on that site.
Completely separate, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You have a question?
Nope.
Okay, yeah, the sensitive areas overlay is based on a citywide survey that was done in the middle or late 1990s that identified a large number of areas around town. They have environmentally sensitive features on them that serve the city with certain ecological services, if you will. Wetlands, they have certain things that they do for any environment, even if they're small enough to not be regulated by the state, they can be regulated locally, and they are. And so every time I hear someone say they're not regulated, yes, they are. They're regulated here by us. The determination of Part 303 not meeting their standards was at least in part because they're 1,500 feet from a waterway and
Size.
about an acre in size.
Yep.
And that's really not relevant to the sensitive area ordinance. What's relevant is whether or not this is serving any purpose as a wetland. So I think it should be clear that when you read the report from Tri-Terra, the comments about whether or not it meets other regulations outside of the local community, take with kind of a grain of salt. So I think that they did identify some wetland features on this site. Whether they're low quality, high quality is not real clear in their report. I wasn't at the Planning Commission meeting, so I don't know exactly how the discussion went, but it sounds as though the conclusion was that it serves little purpose, that it's not really serving the needs that were envisioned by the sensitive area.
Correct.
My concern is that if we start picking apart the sensitive area overlay, that we'll find reasons to disqualify more and more areas from being sensitive areas. They might be rather arbitrary. You're correct in saying that it doesn't matter really what the intent is to use the land for. When you do a rezoning, you look at the full suite of uses available for the land after the rezoning. And taking a sensitive area off is a rezoning because it changes the map. So I appreciate what Salvation Army, what Dwell in Place are trying to do. We absolutely do need housing. We need a housing that working people can afford to live in and afford to own. So that's a critical way to build wealth in the community. Those are all critically important. That's really not the question. The question is whether or not this serves an ecological function. So I think that's a little bit, I'm not sure the question is clearly answered, but I think it's evident it's not a high quality wetland. So I'm willing to go with that. I'm just concerned about where this goes in the future and whether or not we ought to take a good hard look at our sensitive area standards and further clarify what it would take to disqualify an area from being continue to be a sensitive area, because I can guarantee you there will always be people who see opportunity in land and that they can get all the encumbrances taken off the land. They'll use it for something probably profitable. And then at some point you wouldn't have a sensitive area overlay anymore, and all the things that all these little pockets of ecologically important areas are doing for us would be gone. So that's my concern. That's kind of the heartburn I have over this particular site. I can understand why you would draw the conclusion that it could be removed, and I can appreciate what the intent is to do with it, although you're never guaranteed that will happen. So I'm inclined to support this. I have my reservations about it, but I think that we probably, and maybe that's a task for the planning department to take on, or the planning commission, to take a good hard look at the sensitive areas overlay, determine whether or not it's doing what we want it to do, or whether we need to apply some better standards so that when somebody comes to us and says, well, what do we do about the sensitive areas, we can give them a clear answer.
Right.
And then, because I heard a lot of the discussion early on about you want an environmental survey to tell you what's the question? And the planning commission struggled to articulate the question. I think we finally did get to the question. We got an answer of sorts. So I'm not perfectly satisfied, but I do understand where this is coming from and why the planning commission reached this conclusion. And having been on the planning commission for 9 years, I do trust their deliberations, and I do take them seriously, even whether I agree with them or not. So I guess that's all I have to say about that. I think we need to take a good hard look at what our sensitive area overlay is accomplishing and how we're going to proceed on future cases.
Yeah. Noted.
Any other questions or comments on this one? Would you please call the roll?
Fritz?
Yes.
Lowe?
Yes.
Manetza?
Yes.
Thank you.
So that gives the planning commission more work to do now. Okay, that brings us to the end of our regular agenda. We're at the report by city council. Who would like to go first?
Oh, we don't have another public call to the audience?
Doesn't that come after our report by city council?
Oh, it does, you're right.
Anything?
I just want to hope everybody had a great Christmas and a Happy New Year, and looking forward to another year here, so it's going to be a great place to be. We've got a lot of good events coming up. And I want to say thank you for everybody for the New Year's Eve gala that we had downtown. I want to thank everybody that worked so hard on that. It made it such a great success. I was not feeling very well, so even though I only live a block away, I could hear it, and I could go out a little bit and look and see, but I didn't want to get any.
Well, we didn't want to share whatever you had.
No, I didn't either. I didn't want to share it. But so anyways, but from what I seen online and everything, everybody I talked to, it was such a fantastic time. They had a great, great turnout. So Winterfest is coming up, so get ready for that.
Okay.
That's it.
Thank you, Mike. Anything?
No, I'd just like to thank the city manager and staff for a wonderful New Year's Eve celebration. It was really you keep outdoing yourselves. So, well done, and thanks to all of our sponsors for that.
Okay, thank you. And I agree, New Year's Eve party went great. Appreciated everything that went into it. Good community event. I would like to make a follow-up comment. Earlier this evening, we had the unfinished business of the NOTO sign permit, and that motion failed on a 2-to-1 vote. And under our charter, it requires 3 votes to make a decision by council. And so that failed motion isn't really decided at this point. Council could, if they wish, revisit that issue at a future meeting. And so if it's the wish of council, we can bring it back and vote on it again. If council wishes to do nothing more with it, then it never takes effect. But just to be clear, it's kind of a quirk between our charter requiring 3 positive votes on any issue versus Robert's rules, which says a majority of those voting carries the day. That this is actually kind of not exactly an orphan, but it's a issue which isn't really decided. So I will leave it to members of the council to decide between now and some future meeting whether we'd like to see this again.
Oh, I'll make a comment. Yes, I'd like to see it again.
Well, because we can bring this back at any time, pretty much at will. If this were officially denied, which would also take a vote of 3 members of the council to deny it, it would take 12 months before it could come back. But we're not really in that situation. So the issue isn't necessarily decided. It's more of this motion can't take effect because it was defeated this evening. So I just want to make it clear as I can. That's kind of the procedural matter here. So between now and a future meeting, we'll have to decide whether to put this on another agenda.
It takes a couple of us council members to do it, correct?
We can do that. We could put it on an agenda and then council could choose to take it off, however you want to structure it. I would like to see it again. So that's not an issue for tonight, but it's an option that's open. So the issue isn't necessarily put to rest. And that's all I've got. So I think we're to report by city manager.
I do not have anything this evening.
Okay. In that case, we are to our second call to the audience. At this time, members of the audience may address council on any item, whether on the agenda or not. Those addressing council are asked to provide their name and address, will be limited to 3 minutes of speaking time. Council will hear all comments for future consideration, will not have a member response at this time. Those not physically present who would like to call in may dial 616-935-3203. Who would like to address council?
Tom Noto, 1223 South Harbor Drive. I guess I'd like to just kind of set the record straight that the old Bilmar did have a painted sign on that south wall with a double spotlight shining down on it. It was behind the old rooftop exhaust equipment from the, I think from the old patio kitchen area. But there was a sign on that south wall for a long time. Had we not had to tear the whole building down and rebuild it, I guess we wouldn't even have to be here today because there'd be a sign on that south wall. Yeah, so if we didn't have to get to the point where the whole building had to come down, it'd be kind of a moot point. But we sent the photos in. You can clearly see the faded painted sign on the wall and the big double spotlight in the corner shining down on it, which would be much, much brighter than what our sign is going to be. Basically, the Planning Commission and their whole concern was the light pollution and the glare shining into somebody's window. Well, it's not shining on anybody's window. The blue light, if anybody did their homework, like I know some of you have, and you see what sign we have, it just illuminates the wall behind the black letters. There's no light protruding from that. It's changing the color of the wall to the to the LED blue that shines behind the black letters of Notos. So it's from what the Planning Commission really kind of voted on, it was all about the light glare and the pollution. If you look from our stairway to the little park that was mentioned in Highland Park there, their Christmas lights show a whole lot more lighting and glare than what our sign is going to show or would show. So thank you for the consideration again.
Thank you.
Anthony Noto, 1223 South Harbor. As my brother had mentioned, there was a sign. We've been through this process a number of times, and we understand how important it is for everyone to do things, do your due diligence. We're just simply trying to do ours. We have a large investment. Business is different than it was 50 years ago, 67 years ago, almost 70 years ago when the Biltmore was started. We built something that's going to sustain and make Grand Haven proud and hopefully make this community proud. And I believe that if the Planning Commission were to have received the information correctly in their minds and done their homework, as my brother said, that some did not, we would definitely not be here again because they would have understood in terms of what the strength of the light actually was or is. It's simply a brand, and that's simply doing business in a way that any business would want to do business. And with the jewel that we have, it's very important that we continue to provide a little bit of resistance to certain things and certain decisions in order to show our sustainability. Because 40 years ago, this evening, January 6, 1985, we had a family reunion, as I've talked before about this story, about making a full restaurant. And the next day, my father passed away. So I know he's here, and I know the community is here to support. And if it's about a majority, 51% to 49%, there's a big difference. But when are we going to get united? When? We have to understand how important it is that little things make a big difference. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address council? Josh looks like he's itching to get up. Okay. All right, well, if no one else would like to address council, then this meeting will be adjourned. Thank you.